At this point, did you have any understanding that this would later be a crime scene?
I did, yes.
What happened?
Uh, can
How
you-
did you come to that conclusion?
Oh, not at that time.
Oh, not at that time?
No,
Okay.
not at that time.
When you went into the house, what part of the house did you go into?
I went into the room. It's adjacent to the kitchen, and I stood there with Brian Albert.
Can you describe what kind of room that would be?
Yeah, it was just a typical family room type room. It was not large. It was between the garage and the kitchen.
You met with Brian Albert?
Brian Albert answered the door and let us into the house.
Did you understand what his relationship was to that house?
He was the homeowner.
Did Sergeant Lank walk in with you?
He did.
Did he stay in that living area?
No, he went to the kitchen area and sat down with Jen McCabe.
Could you see the kitchen area from where you were?
I could see a portion of the kitchen area.
Did you see anybody else in the kitchen area with Mrs. McCabe and Sergeant Lank?
There were people in the kitchen area. There was nobody with Sergeant Lank or Miss McCabe.
Could you hear their conversation?
No,
Were you trying to listen?
no,
Were you speaking to Mr. Albert?
I was.
Did you take the time to make observations of him?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow it.
Did you take the time to make observations of him?
Yes,
Did you speak to him?
yes,
Did he speak to you?
yes.
Was there anything about his mannerisms or affect that caused you any concern?
No, it was just a social conversation. There was nothing of concern at all.
Was there anything about it that caused you to hone in or be concerned?
No.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow that.
No,
Did you get a chance to look around that living area at the
Sure.
items?
I didn't look around, just with my eyes.
Did you get to see that area?
I did.
Did you see anything broken or looked out of place?
No, nothing.
Anything that caused you any type of concern?
Nothing.
When you looked towards the kitchen, did you see anything that looked different or suspicious in any way?
Nothing.
Was the interaction, did it cause you any alarm or concerns?
No.
After Sergeant Lank had an opportunity to speak to Mrs. McCabe and you spoke to Brian Albert, what did you do next?
We left.
Where did you go?
We went back to the police department and were informed that the state police were going to respond to the hospital and that we didn't need to respond to the hospital.
When you heard that the state police was then going to get involved in the investigation, what does Canton do when the state police takes over an investigation?
Well, it was based off of a conversation I had with my chief in the detective sergeant's office.
Was there a decision about Canton's involvement in the ongoing investigation?
There was.
What was that decision?
That we should recuse ourselves from any further investigative interviews.
And why was that?
Because our best detective, his name was Kevin Albert, and he was the brother of the homeowner, and I didn't want any potential bias, whether unconscious or subjective, to be perceived by the O'Keefe's, by the O'Keefe family.
So when the state police got involved and you had the conversation with the chief, was that the end of your efforts towards this?
It was the end of our efforts until, I helped facilitate during the search warrant on February 1st.
And so at some point, was the defendant's Lexus brought to the Canton Police Department?
It was.
Was it put in a particular area at the Canton Police Department?
It was.
What area?
The Sally Port.
What's a Sally Port?
Sally Port is where, when we have an arrest, we bring our prisoners in. It's basically a extra large garage. It has 4 doors. They're numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. We typically go in door 4 and pull towards door 3. Door 4 is lowered, and then prisoners are walked into the booking area, which is also secure. The exterior doors to the Sally Port can only be opened by the dispatch council.
When crime scene services came to look at the car, was that the same day, the 29th, or later time?
No, it was February 1st.
Did the Lexus remain in the Sallyport area from the 29th until February 1st?
Yes.
When representatives from the crime lab, from the Massachusetts State Police came on February 1st, who provided them access to the Lexus?
I was one of the people there that was there. I don't know if I provided them direct access, but I certainly would have. And I assisted them if they needed things. That's when the chain of custody, the exchange of custody for the blood samples and the glass occurred as well.
And during their processing of the Lexus, were you there for parts of it?
I was in and out, yes, but I did not partake.
Thank you very much.
Please. Mr. Jackson, is this video up there yours, or is it the Commonwealth's?
Not mine. Or is it?
All right.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher, you have already established that you were at the scene on January 29th, early morning, January 29th, 2022. We've seen the video of the leaf blower, correct?
That is correct.
So you were integral to at least an initial search of the scene, which recovered the drinking glass that you've shown us, as well as some of the blood byproduct that you've talked about.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. You were the ranking person on the scene. You've already described that.
Yes, that is correct.
There were also several other officers from Canton PD who were there with you.
Yes, there was 4 other officers, yes.
Can you just name those other officers?
Yeah, Detective Sergeant Lank, Lank, Detective Sergeant Good, Goode, Officer Mullaney, Mullaney, and Officer Saraf, Saraf.
Okay. When you initially, let me back up and ask a different question. Given the fact that you were the ranking officer, the way that it works in a police department is everybody sort of reports up the chain of command, correct?
That is correct, yes.
So they would have all reported up to you in some particular.
That's correct.
And then, of course, you report to I think you're the deputy chief, and then the deputy chief reports on up to the chief, correct?
That is correct.
You were involved in not only the exposing of some of that blood byproduct, but also exposing the glass with the leaf blower, correct?
That is correct.
You were responsible for utilizing certain equipment. You chose a leaf blower at the time, correct?
I did, yes.
There was also, I'm guessing, there was also some use of your hands and or the gloved hands with some others to recover some of the items.
Yeah, I didn't use my hands.
How did you get the glass into a bag?
That was Detective Sergeant Lank.
Somebody had to pick it up, right?
Correct.
That's what I mean. The use of hands to manipulate some of the evidence, correct?
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't understand that question.
That's okay.
I thought you were speaking about me.
It's probably my fault, not yours.
Nope, that's okay.
There was also some plastic cups that we've talked about. We'll talk more about those in a second. Those were utilized as well, correct?
You were, yes.
And you were responsible for the use of those as well.
Yes, it was
So,
my decision, yes.
In terms of the search of the scene, the recovery of evidence, the recovery of biological material, the use of tools to recover those biological materials, all of that rested at least ultimately at the scene on your shoulders, correct?
Yes, it did.
Isn't it true that you weren't interviewed in this case with regard to anything having to do with this case until April 3rd, 2024, correct?
Yes, we can call it an interview. It's when I met with the prosecutor, yes.
And that was about 2.5 years, nearly 2.5 years after this incident, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Michael Proctor, you know that name.
I do.
Who is Michael Proctor?
He was one of the troopers assigned to investigate the case.
As a matter of fact, he was the lead investigator for the case, correct?
I don't know if he was lead or trooper mechanic. I don't know.
As you sit here, you don't know that Michael Proctor was the lead case agent for...
I know he was one of them, yes.
Okay. Do you know that he was the lead investigator assigned to the case?
I don't. I had nothing to do with the DA's office.
Right. I know you didn't have
I don't know how they assign their cases, counsel. I don't know what you want me to say. I can't say what I don't know.
Mr. Gallagher, I'm not asking you to. I'm just asking if...
I did not know he was lead. I knew he was one of the leads.
Okay.
I believe they do it in a tandem, but I'm not sure.
Okay. He may have had a partner, correct?
That is correct, yes.
But it's not unusual to have a lead case agent, the person who's responsible for most of the search warrant writing and the memorialization of and documentation of evidence collection and the movement of evidence and booking into evidence, things like that.
That is correct, but I don't know anything about who wrote their affidavits or who logged their evidence in. I wouldn't know that.
You're also familiar with Yuri Buchanek, correct?
I know who he is.
You're also familiar with Lieutenant Tully?
I know, yes.
They're all Massachusetts State Police officers, correct?
Yes, they all are.
Did
yes.
Michael Proctor interview you before April of 2024?
He did not.
Did your Buchanan interview you before April of 2024?
No, he did not.
Did Lieutenant Tully interview you before April of 2024?
No, he did not.
Did anybody else from the Canton Police Department, your deputy chief or the chief, interview you formally about your conduct and responsibilities before April of 2024?
I don't understand that question.
Did anybody at Canton PD, separating out Massachusetts State Police,
Correct.
did you sit down at Canton PD and provide an interview with anybody at Canton PD about your conduct at the scene?
What do you mean by conduct?
Going to the scene, collecting evidence, securing evidence, transporting evidence, booking evidence, those kinds of things. Your conduct at the scene, sir.
Yeah, I briefed my superiors, yes.
Okay, other than briefing, was there a formal report written
No.
or a formal interview conducted of you?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Tell us when you wrote your report about what happened at the scene, memorializing what you did at the scene.
I didn't.
You didn't write a report?
About the scene that day at the scene?
Correct, about this investigation.
I only did the metadata report. I did not write a report at the scene.
You never, in fact, the fact is you never wrote any report about what happened at the scene, correct?
Correct.
You didn't memorialize that in any formal way on Canton PD letterhead to describe what you did and how you did it at the scene.
No.
Normally, when you report to a scene as a first responder, you would be expected to write a report about that, whatever that conduct is.
I'm not the supervisor, no.
What if you're the ranking person at a scene that ultimately turns into a homicide scene?
Well, we don't know it's a homicide scene at this time. We don't even know there's a crime committed at this time. My
Understood.
responsibilities are to make sure reports are written, not to necessarily write the reports myself. I'm the supervisor. It's
Although-
my job to make sure reports are written, evidence is logged, those types of things.
Under ordinary circumstances, you would respond to a scene as a supervisor, and you would oversee what other people are doing, what your
That's
subordinate-
correct.
Can I finish?
Sure.
I don't want to talk over each other.
I apologize.
You would want a supervisor oversee what your subordinate officers, whatever he or she might be doing or they might be doing. You're going to oversee that. But they're the ones actually conducting the investigation or picking up evidence or doing the interviews, writing those things of that nature.
Correct. Detective Sergeant Lake's investigation, yes.
So in that circumstance, you wouldn't be expected to write a report because all of that conduct is memorialized by others subordinate to the supervisor, correct?
Correct.
But in this case, quite the opposite happened. You were the one that was in the video utilizing the leaf blower, correct?
That's correct.
You were the one that actually exposed the drinking glass, correct?
Correct, yes.
You noted the drinking glass and actually called somebody else over to take a look at it, correct?
That's correct.
You directed someone, Sergeant Lang, to pick up the drinking glass and recover it as a potential piece of evidence, correct?
That is correct.
You noted the blood or the coagulation of blood in and around that area, correct?
That is correct.
You noted where you believe the drinking glass was, in other words, what location, if there were grid coordinates, where it would be, correct?
Correct.
And you instructed others to transport that important evidence back to Canton PD to have it booked, correct?
That is correct.
You also secured the plastic containers in which to recover the blood.
That is
right?
correct.
You also directed someone to get a bag to put the plastic containers in and ultimately transport it, correct?
That is correct.
So you would agree with me, Mr. Gallagher, that in this circumstance, you were the centerpiece of the recovery of evidence and the investigation as it was at that time in that limited context. You were the centerpiece of what was happening at the scene, correct?
And I made sure it was documented by Detective Sergeant Lang.
But you didn't find it important enough to write a report yourself.
I think that's poor misrepresentation. There's a person fighting for their life. It was very important.
When you were there at the scene at, what time was it, by the way?
I got there shortly after 7.
Okay, you knew that that person who was fighting for his life had already been transported and was in good care, as best care we can provide at Good Samaritan Hospital, correct?
That is correct.
So certainly you're not excusing away the idea that you didn't memorialize your conduct because you were too busy fighting for someone's life. That's not what you're saying.
No, it definitely is not what I'm
Okay.
saying.
obviously, reporting to a scene and supervising a scene is one thing, but actually gathering evidence is a whole next level. You would agree with that?
Sure.
Because, just to put a fine point on it, responding to a scene as a supervisor, you want to make sure everybody's doing their duty, but the officer or officers who, for instance, uncover, let's say it's a knife or a gun or some weapon or something like that, actually documenting and picking up that evidence and handling it up in an appropriate way, that is all highly, highly technical. It's very important to get it right and memorialize it all, correct?
That is correct.
That's why you're highly trained to memorialize and report everything that you do in that regard in a report that can later be used forensically, in other words, in a courtroom setting, to recreate as best you can with as much detail as you can exactly what you did and how you did it and where it was done, correct?
Sure. Yes.
Officer Lank wrote a report in this case.
Sure.
Did Officer Mullaney?
I believe you did, yes.
Did Officer Seraph?
Yes.
Officer Good? Sergeant
Yes.
Good?
Yes,
But you did not.
I did not.
Who was the first officer to find any potential physical evidence at the scene, be it blood or glass?
I can't answer that. It was not me. I was not the first thing that was spotted was the pink spotting, not the glass.
Okay. Who was the first person to see the glass?
I think it was myself as I uncovered it with the leaf blower.
One of the important things that we've talked about, Mr. Gallagher, is documenting the details of evidence recovery, not just the fact that something was recovered, correct?
That's correct.
So you'd want to know what time of day it was recovered, correct?
Sure.
You'd want to know who was there and who was around when it was recovered, correct?
Yes.
You'd want to know what the item is, the condition of the item, right?
Yes.
You'd also want to know exactly where it's recovered, correct?
Yes.
In other words, as best you can to pinpoint the exact location where an item was found. That
Yes.
could play a huge role in any investigation, be it criminal or otherwise.
It could. It could.
Did you diagram or draw a diagram back at Canton PD or
I did
out
not.
at the scene
No.
about where that glass was found?
No, I did no reports or diagrams.
Did you diagram exactly where you recovered the blood spots that you did recover?
No.
Did you at least, if you didn't write a report, did you at least take notes on a pad about what you were doing?
The conditions weren't, it was pretty hard to take notes at that time, but I did not take notes, no.
At some point, you mentioned a person by the name of Tom Kelleher, Deputy Chief Kelleher.
That's correct.
Who is Deputy Chief Kelleher?
He's the deputy chief of Canton Police.
He was active on active duty at the time? When I say active duty, I don't mean that morning, that hour. I mean just generally.
Yes. He was a lieutenant at that time.
He was someone to whom, as a matter of fact, probably the only person to whom at Canton PD you actually reported, correct? Up the chain of command. He was the only person to whom you reported up the chain of command, meaning he was your direct report.
He was in charge of detectives at that time.
And
yes.
then, of course, the chief would be above him, correct?
Deputy chief and chief.
Okay. When you responded to the scene, Deputy Chief Kelleher did not come out of his house and take over the investigation, correct?
Correct.
That was yours to detail,
That is correct.
at least while you were there.
That is correct.
So can you describe what you did to preserve the crime scene? I'm sorry, to preserve the scene, because at that time you said you did not know if it was a crime scene. Is that right?
That's correct.
What did you do in
I mean,
terms of actually preserving the scene for later investigation? What steps did you take?
For later, can you explain later investigation?
So let me take a step back.
Sure.
Have you been trained to preserve scenes?
Yes.
Okay. What's the reason that you want to preserve a scene? What does that mean?
We collect evidence.
Collect evidence and make sure nothing is disturbed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Civilians can't kind of traipse through or walk through evidence, correct?
That's correct.
You've heard the phrase forensically, evidence in, evidence out. Someone traipses through a crime scene, you bring
Correct.
evidence with you, and you take it back afterwards on your shoes or on your feet or your breath or your saliva, whatever it might be.
Very familiar with that, yes.
Preserving the scene is best efforts, is best practices to make sure that nothing is moved, touched, messed with in any way, correct?
That's correct, and that's what was done here.
What did you do? That's my question. What did you do to preserve that scene?
There were no civilians ever to trample through. Were rescue efforts made on Mr. O'Keefe? Yes, that's priority. So rescue workers do go into any type of scene. Medical life-saving measures come first. Once all apparatus was off scene, the original officers put out crime scene tape to mark an area. And later, it was documented, it was photographed, and evidence was collected.
And it was searched by you, at least initially with the leaf blower.
Correct.
Okay. So you were interested in the area that, by the way, I want to clear this up, make sure I'm not mistaken. You described for Mr. Brennan basically where Mr. O'Keefe's body was, correct?
Yes, yes,
You never saw his body in situ. You never saw his body in place.
that is correct.
You were told by Sergeant Lank generally where his body was, correct?
Yes, and Sergeant Lank actually never saw Mr. O'Keefe either.
That's my next question.
Okay,
Sergeant Lank-
and Mr. Good, and Sergeant Good as well.
Right. Sergeant Lank never saw John O'Keefe actually in place, correct?
That is correct.
So you're receiving information from Sergeant Lank that he did not have personal knowledge of, and then you're providing that information later to crime scene investigators who are trying to establish a diagram or some sort of a chart about where that evidence was, where the drinking glass was, where his body was, correct?
No, I never spoke to anybody in that manner about that.
Didn't you ultimately go out to the scene along with others at Massachusetts State Police when they had a drone overhead?
No, you're mistaken. I can clarify it for you if you wish.
Sure.
So on February 1st, after the execution of the warrant, they wanted to go down to the scene. It was Trooper Proctor and somebody from the CARS team, I'm not sure of the name. Once they got down there, I did show them where I was shown John O'Keefe was. They did want to put up a drone, but they could not do it because they were too close to Norwood Airport and because of FAA regulations.
Okay.
And that was the last of my involvement with that.
So-
I hope that clarifies things for you.
Forget the drone. I'm interested in the first part, which was you accompanied Trooper Proctor to the
Correct.
scene, correct?
Correct.
There were other members of CARS, C-A-R-S.
I think there was one. Crash accident reconstruction section, I'm assuming.
Okay, so it's a forensic, a member of MSP who does forensic diagrams, correct?
I would say. I don't know if they do diagrams. I don't know what they do.
Or reconstruction of some sort.
Sure, reconstruction of some sort.
So you were there to help provide information about where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found, correct?
And be a Canton police officer present in case any neighbors had come out.
So you were there to help provide information about, or at least you did provide information to them about where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found.
Oh, sure, yes.
Except you didn't see Mr. O'Keefe's body, did you?
No, I did not.
So that was a guess on your part.
It was what I was shown. It's the information I had.
Yeah, it was the information you were told by Sergeant Lang, correct?
Yes,
Who also didn't see John O'Keefe in place on the ground at 34 Ferry, correct?
that is correct, yes.
So his would be a guess also, correct?
Well, we're going backwards, so he was told by Sergeant Good and et cetera. So it was information passed along, which is what police officers do.
Right. But the police officer that was out there at the scene, who was helping the reconstructionist establish the formal report, and the CARS report was an officer who not only didn't see where John O'Keefe's body was, you got information about where John's body was from someone who didn't see it either. Correct? Can we at least agree on
No,
that?
You have to go back to the beginning. I didn't understand the beginning of that question. It
Sure,
was very
I'll try it
long.
again. The point is, Mr. Gallagher, you happen to be tapped as the person who is going to assist the CARS folks, the MSP, in creating their CARS,
No.
ultimately their CARS report.
No.
Isn't it true that you accompanied Trooper Proctor and members of the CARS unit to document Fairview Road and the scene of the incident?
Yeah, I thought I explained it could not be done.
Okay.
So
I'm not
I
asking
wasn't,
you-
I only went to show them where Mr. O'Keefe was and in case any neighbors came out. I wasn't there to assist in any documentation at all.
You were there. You know who Brian Tully is.
I do.
Have you reviewed Brian Tully's report?
I have not. You showed me one section of it.
Is it true that what you actually told Brian Tully is that you went with Trooper Proctor, and you're already shaking your head now. I haven't even finished the question.
No.
I got that part wrong. You accompanied Trooper Proctor?
No, what's wrong is I was interviewed by Lieutenant Tully. That was a meeting I had
Okay.
with Prosecutor Lally.
Okay.
Trooper Tully was present. Trooper Tully never asked me any question. I don't recall Trooper
I
Tully
see.
ever asking me a question, sir.
So let me be a little bit more defined. So in Trooper Tully's report, where he reports what you said, you were actually talking to Adam Lally, my colleague sitting up in front.
Correct.
Okay. So now we've got that cleared up. Let me ask you again. Did you say in front of Trooper Tully that you accompanied Trooper Proctor and members of the CARS unit to document Fairview Road?
Meaning they were documenting Fairview Road. It's not clear. The report's not clear. They were going to document Fairview Road, not me.
So you just said something that I want to follow up on.
Okay,
The report's not clear, correct?
that's correct.
So that's an inaccurate report.
I wouldn't call it inaccurate at all. I'm just saying you're misinterpreting the wording.
I see. And I'm misinterpreting it even though I just read it directly from the report?
Yeah, sometimes sentences have different meanings. Yes, you are.
Okay. The reality. Good morning.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Ryan Nagel.
How old are you?
I'm 32 years old.
What area of the city or the state do you live in?
I live in Canton, Massachusetts.
How long have you lived in Canton for?
32 years, my whole life.
You still live in Canton?
Yes, I do.
Do you work in the area?
I work in the city.
What do you do generally?
I do HVAC.
Do you have any sisters?
I do. I have one.
What's her name?
Juliana.
Is she older or younger than you?
She is younger.
I want you to take us back to January 29th, 2022. That evening on the 28th leading into the 29th, do you remember where you were?
Yes, I do.
Where were you?
I was in a vehicle.
Okay. Before you were in the vehicle, were you out earlier that night on the 28th?
Yes, sir. I was at CF McCarthy's.
What's CF McCarthy's?
It is a local restaurant / pub in the
Who-
center of Canton.
Who were you at CF McCarthy's with?
My sister at the time, and then my friend Ricky and my ex-girlfriend Heather.
What were you doing at CF McCarthy's?
Just enjoying a night, having a few drinks.
When you said have a few drinks, did you have a few drinks?
I did, yes.
Do you remember how many drinks you had?
Not off the top of my head.
Do you remember whether the drinks you had, the alcoholic drinks that you had, it affected your ability at all? Were you impaired in any way?
I wouldn't say impaired, but I only drank beer.
Okay. Do you feel like you had any type of effect from the alcohol?
I may have.
Were you driving?
No, I was not, sir.
Do you remember the times that you were at McCarthy?
Probably 8, 9 o'clock.
What time did you leave?
Probably right before midnight.
When you left McCarthy's right before midnight, did you have a plan that you were going to do something?
No, I did not.
Tell us, after you leave McCarthy's, where do you go?
I was going to go home, but my sister Julie texted me to be picked up.
When you were going to go home, tell us, when you leave McCarthy's, what kind of vehicle were you in?
I was in my friend Ricky's Ford pickup truck.
Who was driving?
Ricky,
Was anybody else with you too?
my ex-girlfriend Heather.
Heather. You know Heather's last name?
Maxim.
Was she in the front or the back of the truck?
She was in the back seat.
So you three were in the truck and Ricky was driving?
Correct, sir.
You mentioned you were going to go home. Did you start to head towards your home?
Mr. Brennan, slow down a little bit for the court
Oh.
reporter, please.
Pardon me. You mentioned you were going to go home. Did you start heading towards your house?
Yes.
Do you remember what time you got the text from your sister?
Around midnight. I can't remember that far back.
You don't have a firm memory of it?
No, I do not, sir.
After you received the text from your sister, did your plan change?
Yes.
And what was the plan after you received the text from your sister?
To go pick her up.
Did you know where she was?
Yes, I did.
Where was she?
She was at her friend Brian's house.
Did you know the address?
Not off the top of my head, but I knew the street.
Did you know the house?
Yes.
Did you know her friend Brian?
Yes, I did.
What is his last name?
Albert.
Is he a senior or a junior?
He's a junior.
About how old is he?
I think 27, 28 years old.
Were you friends with Brian Albert Jr.?
Just through my sister.
Had you ever been to that house before inside the house?
No, I have not, sir.
Do you have any other purpose of going to that address other than to pick up your sister?
No, sir.
How long did it take you after you left to redirect and get to that address?
Probably roughly 5 to 7 minutes.
Do you know what time specifically you arrived at that address?
Probably a little before 12:30.
Is that a general guess?
Yes.
Did you look at your watch and note the time, or is this an
No.
estimate?
Just an estimate, sir.
So the estimate is you arrived around 12:30?
Correct.
When you approach the house, before you approach the house, is there a road that intersects Fairview?
Yes.
And what's the name of that road?
Can't even actually. Give me a second. I can't think of the name.
Okay.
Off the top of my head right now.
Are you familiar with any roads in that area?
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with the road Cedar Crest?
Yes, sir.
Had you driven on Cedar Crest before?
Yes, I have.
If you're driving on Cedar Crest, can you loop around like a circle on that road?
Yes.
At some point, do the two parts of that circle intersect with another road?
I believe so.
Is Fairview, from your knowledge, attached to Cedar Crest Road?
Yes.
As you were traveling, did you travel on Cedar Crest before you got to Fairview?
Yes.
Okay, I want to ask you some questions about right before you turn on, or Ricky turns on to Fairview. As you're driving down Cedar Crest, before you turn on to Fairview, did you see anything?
I saw a vehicle coming at us. Not directly at us, but obviously traveling on the other side of the road.
Okay. And where was that vehicle traveling towards?
Us, and then they put their blinker on to take a right. For
And
them to take a right.
that vehicle was going to take a right onto Fairview?
Correct, sir.
And your vehicle's coming in the opposite direction?
Correct.
Where was your vehicle going?
Taking a left onto Fairview.
Did you both meet at that intersection?
Yes, roughly around the same time.
Who turned onto Fairview first?
The other vehicle.
How did that happen?
I believe Ricky flashed his lights to let them go.
Did you see the other vehicle?
Yes.
Do you remember what kind of vehicle it was?
That was a black SUV.
When that car turned right onto Fairview, how long after did Ricky turn left onto Fairview?
Seconds.
When you came to that intersection and met that car, when Ricky blinked his lights, could you see inside that SUV?
Say that again?
When you came to the intersection at Fairview, and you said that the driver of your truck, Ricky, blinked his lights, could you see anything inside the SUV?
I wasn't really looking.
Okay. After that SUV turned right onto Fairview and Ricky turned left onto Fairview, who was in front of who?
The other vehicle was in front of us.
Was the other vehicle in front of you the entire time you saw it?
Yes, sir.
Did Ricky ever drive and park in front of that vehicle?
No, we were behind them.
Always behind it?
Always.
When Ricky pulled up to Fairview, where did he stop?
Right in front of the driveway of the Albert's house.
You were in the front passenger side of the truck?
Correct, sir.
If you looked directly outside that window, what would you have seen?
The driveway and the house.
The other vehicle, did it stop at the driveway?
No, it was probably like a car length in front of us.
So it was in front of you.
Correct, sir.
Did you ever see that car stop at the driveway?
At the driveway, I don't recall.
Did you wait before you got to Fairview, or did Ricky drive directly to Fairview after he took the left?
Well, he turned the left onto Fairview.
Okay. Did he wait or did he drive directly to Fairview?
He drove directly there.
Okay. The car in front of you, did you ever see it move behind you in front of the driveway?
It was in front of me the whole time.
Okay. And so I'll ask the question again. Did you ever see that SUV stop at the foot of the driveway?
No, but I did see the brake lights. It looked like it moved, but it wasn't. So the brake lights were on. They released them and then stopped again. So it probably moved another car length up.
How many times did you see the brake lights on?
Just once, sir.
After you stopped at the foot of the driveway, did you keep your attention on that SUV?
Not really, no. I was more concerned about my sister.
So you weren't studying it?
No.
Were you making any notes or trying to mark its direction of travel?
No.
But you do know, or do you have any doubt that it was in front of you the entire time?
Yes, it was.
When you pulled to the driveway, did you go in to see your sister?
No.
What did you do?
I texted her saying we're here, and she came out, opened up the door. She looks at me and Rick and said, "Hey, do you guys want to come in? For a drink or whatever." And I looked at him, looked in the back seat, asked Heather. We said, "No, we're all set. We're going to go home." And so she decided to stay.
So the idea was to give her a ride home. You did not give her a ride home?
Correct, we did not.
Let me ask you some questions. Before your sister came out of the house, do you remember how long you waited for her?
For roughly 2 minutes.
In its entirety, how long was that truck parked at the foot of the driveway in front of Fairview?
Probably closer to 5 minutes, sir.
Is that an estimate?
Yes, I'm just guessing from what I can remember.
Did you mark the time in any way? Look at your watch in any way?
No, sir.
That's your general memory?
You're just roughly trying to remember.
When you looked up at the house, did you see there were more than one door?
Yes, there were
Do you
two
remember,
doors. Yes.
Do you remember what door your sister came out of?
She came out of the side door, which is to the left of the garage.
Did you watch her?
Yes.
Where did she walk? From where to where?
She walked out of that door down the driveway towards us.
When she reached you, how did you have a conversation with her if you were in the truck?
I opened the door, my passenger door.
As you were speaking with her, were you watching anything else, or was your attention directed to your sister?
Nope, just on my sister.
At some point after your sister turned to go inside, did you wait for her, or did you leave right away? Or did Ricky leave right away?
We waited for her to get back into the house.
At any point before your sister went back in the house, did you see any lights, like dome lighting, come on inside that SUV?
Yes, I did, sir.
Before or after your sister went in the house?
Roughly like as she was getting in the door.
Before you ended your conversation with her, did you see the dome light go on in that SUV?
Say that again, sorry.
Before your sister left the driveway, did you see any dome light on in the SUV?
No, I wasn't looking.
Your sister began to walk back to the house. What was your direction? What was your attention focused on?
Mainly on her. We were pulling away from the driveway and kind of just glancing back over at Julie to make sure she got in.
When your sister went back up the driveway to go in the house, when was the next point you had any chance to see the SUV?
When we were passing it.
When you were passing the SUV, where was it located in relation to the house, flagpole?
Directly in front of the house.
Was it anywhere near the flagpole as you drove by?
Probably like a car length from that.
A car length from the flagpole?
Yes, give or take.
Is that the middle, right, or left side of the house?
That would be towards the left side of the house.
As you drove by that SUV, what was your primary focus?
My sister, sir. Like watching her get in.
You were being attentive to her getting in?
Correct, sir.
As you watched her get in, did you glance or see anything else in your vision as you were watching your sister go into the
I
house?
saw that there was a woman in the driver's seat of the black SUV in front of me, sitting there with her hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2.
Did you get a good enough look that you would remember who that person was, or was it too brief to
It
identify
was
the person?
too brief, sir.
You saw the person in the SUV with their hands on the wheel. How did you see them inside the car?
Their dome light was on.
Do you know how a dome light comes on in a vehicle?
Yes, sir. Either you press it yourself or if there's a door open.
When you had the glance or the glimpse of the woman in that SUV holding the wheel, you said 10 and 2?
Correct, sir.
Could you describe for us what that means?
Just like a clock, just the hands on the clock, like 10 and 2.
If I may. I was just waiting for the siren, Your Honor. If I could show Exhibit 3 to Mr. Nagel. Sir, do you recognize that address?
Yes, sir.
And what is that address?
That is 34 Fairview Road.
Do you recognize the flagpole?
Yes, I do, sir.
Thank you. When you drove by and you said you saw a woman sitting in the front and the dome light was on, did you see anybody else in the car?
No, sir.
Were you looking for anybody?
No, sir.
Could there have been somebody else in the vehicle at that time?
It could have been, yes.
Could there have been someone standing outside the door?
Yes, it could have been.
When you saw the person, were you studying the person?
No.
How long of a time did you have to take a glimpse of that person?
5-10 seconds, maybe.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you some questions about the entire time you were parked at the foot of the driveway until the point that you left Fairview. From when you first stopped at the driveway at Fairview until the point that you left and were no longer in front of that property, did you ever see any person get out of that SUV that was in front of you?
No, I did not, sir.
Did you ever see anybody, any man, ever cross the front yard towards that home?
No, I did not, sir.
Did you ever see any man ever enter or stand in that front door?
No, I did not, sir.
Did you ever see anybody walk across the front yard to the side door?
I'll allow it.
No, I did not, sir.
Did you ever see anybody enter that side door other than your sister?
No, I did not, sir.
As you were parked at the driveway the entire time, that generally 5-minute time, did you ever see anybody get out of the SUV and walk down the street towards the driveway?
I'll allow it.
No, I did not, sir.
Did you ever see anybody walk past your truck and up the driveway?
No, I did not, sir.
Did you ever see any person other than your sister outside of those vehicles the entire time that you were at Fairview?
I'll allow it.
No, I did not, sir.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Yannetti?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You testified about having seen a black SUV before the vehicle that you were in entered Fairview Road at around midnight on January 29th of 2022, correct?
Correct, sir.
Objection. That's not facts and evidence.
That's okay. The witness's answer is what matters. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
You first saw that black SUV when it was coming toward your vehicle when you were on Cedar Crest, correct? I'm sorry. Let me repeat that because of the siren. You first saw that black SUV when it was coming toward the vehicle that you were in on Cedar Crest, correct?
Correct, sir.
Your friend Ricky D'Antano was driving at that time?
D'Antano, sorry.
D'Antano?
Yes.
He was driving at the
Hold on.
time?
Correct, sir.
Mr. Yannetti, thank you.
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you. Ricky doesn't drink, correct?
He does.
He wasn't drinking that night.
He may have had one or two.
Okay. But he appeared to be driving safely.
Yes, sir.
And you also had a chance to observe the black SUV at that time as it was facing you, correct?
Yes.
When you saw it on Cedar Crest, you didn't know who was driving it at that time, correct?
No, I couldn't see.
But your observations of the black SUV at that time were that whoever was driving it, that person appeared to be driving safely as well, correct?
Yeah, I would assume so, yes.
one of the first things you noticed about the black SUV was that it was in front of you on Cedar Crest, and both Ricky's F-150 and the black SUV were basically converging on Fairview at about the same time?
Yes, sir.
The black SUV appeared to be going at a safe speed.
Yes.
It appeared to be properly staying within its lane.
Yes, I would say, yeah.
And when it was time for Ricky to take a left onto Fairview, he actually put on his left blinker, or not left blinker, but both his blinker, flashed his lights to signal that it was okay for the black SUV to cut in front of it, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he actually did have his left blinker on at that time, correct? Prior
Yes,
to
sir.
doing that? And the black SUV had its right directional on, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when both cars have their directionals on, indicating they're going down the same street, the black SUV did not suddenly cut in front of Ricky's vehicle until the flashing of the lights, correct?
Correct, sir.
Both cars appeared to be operating safely, correct?
Correct, sir.
And once the lights were flashed, there was nothing about the operation of that black SUV that told you that the driver appeared to be confused about what the flashing meant, correct?
Correct, sir.
The black SUV didn't hesitate at that time. It just proceeded onto Fairview in front of you, correct?
Correct, sir.
And it did so in a safe manner.
Correct, sir.
And the black SUV, in that sense, got ahead of Ricky's vehicle, correct?
Correct, sir.
And once you got to the Albert home, you noticed that the black SUV was parked outside the Albert home, correct?
Correct, sir.
And at that time, the snow had not yet started sticking to the pavement, correct?
Correct, sir.
You could see the pavement in both the driveway and the street.
Correct, sir.
You could also see the grass on the lawn.
Yeah, for the most part, yes.
The snow was only just starting to accumulate on the grass, correct?
Correct, sir.
And with that little snow on the ground, you saw no tire marks behind the SUV, correct?
No, sir.
In fact, you saw no tire marks in the street at all.
Correct, sir.
May I have the map displayed, please?
Is it in evidence already, Mr. Yannetti?
May we approach?
Okay.
Is that okay? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Can you
Mr.
enlarge that, please?
Yeah, actually, yeah. You know what? If we could enlarge it, so you don't have to show Chapman, just show Cedar Crest and Fairview, and maybe pull it in a little bit to the right now, the other way. See if that works. Okay, that's much better. I don't know how your eyes are, sir, but are you able to read the street names on?
To be honest, no, I can't see that far.
Okay, if I suggested to you that the top street horizontal going down from right to left was Cedar Crest, and that the street where the red arrow is Fairview Road, would that orient you?
Yes, sir.
And would it be fair to say that before you actually were coming down Cedar Crest Road as you look at this map from right to left, correct?
Correct, sir.
And in that sense, you were traveling west on Cedar Crest, correct?
Yes.
You turned south onto Fairview, correct?
Correct, sir.
And you were still facing south when you parked in front of 34 Fairview, correct?
Correct, sir.
And that means that when you're sitting in that vehicle on Fairview Road, if you were going to walk to the house or look to the house, you would be walking or looking in a westerly direction, correct?
From where I was in the vehicle?
Yes.
Yes, so to my right, yes.
Okay, and so when you were looking for Julie to come out, you were looking to the west?
Correct, sir.
All right. Your Honor, I would offer that into evidence. We're going to have a hard copy printed out for the jury after this examination.
Okay, so we need something for the court reporter to...
Sure. All right. We will take care of that. Thank you.
Right, so-
And you can put the lights back on and you can take that down.
so it will be, go ahead, madam.
Next exhibit will be 49.
49, thank you. And sir, it took a couple of minutes for Julie to come out after Ricky parked the F-150.
Yes.
When she did come out, you opened the door and you had a conversation with her while she stood between the door and the passenger compartment of the F-150?
Repeat that, please. Sorry.
Sure. When she did come out, she approached the F-150, correct?
Correct, sir.
And you were in the passenger's compartment, right?
Correct, sir.
You opened up the passenger's door, correct?
Correct, sir.
And she sort of, you stayed in the vehicle, right?
Correct, I never left.
And she came sort of into like the crook of the door and the passenger's compartment.
Yes, sir.
All right. You had a chance. How close did she get to you?
I could have popped on her nose if I wanted to.
Okay. And you had a chance to observe her and size her up, correct?
Correct, sir.
You spoke to her for maybe about 5 minutes was your best estimate?
I wouldn't say 5. I'd probably say 2 or 3.
Okay. But in any case, you did have a chance to observe her, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it was clear to you that your sister Julie seemed like she had had a few drinks, correct?
I mean, yeah, it was 12:30 in the morning, so yes.
And she called you for a ride, right?
Yes, she knew that Ricky was driving.
Right. And when you arrived there, there was a discussion about whether she'd actually take the ride, right?
Correct, sir.
If she was just going to come out and take the ride, there would have been no need for the conversation, correct?
Correct.
But do you recall previously testifying that you were out talking to Julie for over 5 minutes?
I would not say over 5 minutes, no.
Okay. Do you deny that it was about 5 minutes?
Objection?
I'll allow it. Do you deny it was about 5 minutes?
Could have been.
Okay.
I'm not.
Fair enough. And you talked with her about whether she wanted to go in the truck and leave with you, correct?
Correct, sir.
You also talked about whether instead you, Heather, and Ricky would go into the house to join the gathering there.
Correct, sir.
There was a back and forth that you really thought was unnecessary, correct?
I wouldn't say it would be unnecessary. It's just a common question if you want to come in and have a drink.
You have testified in the past that Julie can be kind of a pain in the ass, correct?
I mean, all siblings can be, yeah.
In any case, Julie decides to go back inside and you decide to leave, correct?
Correct, sir.
Ricky did not speed up the street at that time.
No.
He just gradually pulled out.
Correct, sir.
His direction of travel took him right past the black SUV that was now in front of you, correct?
Correct, sir.
He passed the black SUV on the left, correct?
Correct, sir.
And you were in the front passenger seat at that time still, correct?
Correct, sir.
So you were closest to the black SUV of the people that were in your vehicle as you passed it, correct?
Correct, sir, yes.
And you were closest to the driver's side of the black SUV, correct?
Correct, sir.
You noticed that the interior dome light was on, correct?
That is correct, sir.
That lit up the whole front compartment of the SUV, did it not?
Yes.
It lit up the driver's seat and the passenger's seat, correct?
All I could see was the driver at the time, sir.
Understood. But the light wasn't just shining just on the driver. It wasn't pointed at the driver.
I would say they were both lights that go down at both seats, correct? They were on.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So you could see both seats in the front driver's
I
compartment.
couldn't
correct?
see past the woman.
Well, you only saw one.
I only
person.
saw a woman. Sorry to interrupt you. Yes.
No problem. It allowed you to see into that front compartment.
Yes.
All right. And you saw one person inside the car at that time.
Correct, sir.
It was a woman with long hair in the driver's seat, correct?
Correct, sir.
And she looked like she was alone.
Yes.
You didn't see anybody else in the SUV.
No, I did not, sir.
You certainly didn't see a 6'1" man in the SUV in the passenger seat, correct?
Correct, sir.
In fact, you saw that the passenger seat was empty.
Correct.
The woman in the passenger seat was staring straight ahead, correct?
Not in the passenger seat. She
I'm
was
sorry,
in the driver's seat.
thank you for catching that. The woman in the driver's seat was staring straight ahead.
That is correct, sir.
You didn't see her lips moving as if she were talking, correct?
I wasn't looking for that.
But
Just
you
happened to
did-
see a woman figure with her hands like this.
Okay. Facing straight.
Correct, sir.
You had no music on in Ricky's truck at that time, correct?
No, sir.
Ricky had turned the music down when Julie came out so that you could actually speak to her, correct?
That is correct, sir.
And when you got close to that SUV while you were passing it, you didn't hear any arguing there, correct?
Correct.
You didn't hear any yelling, correct?
No, I did not.
You didn't hear any screaming?
No, I did not.
You heard no noises within that SUV at all?
No, I did not, sir.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Brennan?
Sir, you mentioned you were at that address around 12:30,
That is correct, sir.
and you offered us that you were there for about 5 minutes.
Yes?
You know the exact time you left?
No. Not off the top of my head right now, no.
Was it around that time?
Yes, sir.
Would it be fair to say you don't have certainty whether it was 12:35, 12:32, 12 o'clock?
It's probably before 12:35, roughly between 12:30 and 12:35.
You could still see the ground, given
Yes,
the
sir.
weather.
Yes, sir.
Was there snow starting to fall?
Just starting?
Had you been outside earlier that night?
Yes, sir.
And the ground that you could see, do you know how hard it was?
Say that again?
The
sir?
ground.
The ground, yes.
Do you know if it was soft or hard?
Like the road?
The ground, the grass, the lawn.
Oh. I don't know. I mean, it was a cold night, so I mean, I assume it's hard.
Around that time, around 12:30 when you left, was there inches of snow?
No, there was
On the
not
ground?
inches of snow, no. I could still see the grass coming through the snow. I mean, it's just like a coating.
You could still see the bare ground.
Correct, sir.
When you saw that SUV in front of you for the time that you were there, that 5 minutes, did you ever, and you said that you saw brake lights at times, did you ever see at that point missing parts of its taillights?
No, sir, I wasn't observing the vehicle like that.
When the taillights were on, when the brakes were on, what color was the glow?
Red, sir.
Did you ever see a missing piece where it was white instead of red?
No, sir.
Over near the flagpole where you saw this SUV, did you see any human being, any person lying on the ground near the flagpole?
No, sir.
When you drove by the SUV, you said you couldn't see past the woman. Could you see inside the SUV when you drove past?
Repeat yourself.
When you drove past the SUV, you saw a woman in the driver's seat.
Yes, that is correct.
You didn't see anybody else.
No.
Do you know if anybody else was in that SUV?
Could have been.
I'll allow it.
It could have been.
From when you were driving by the SUV and you could see inside the driver's seat and saw the woman, could you see on the other side of the SUV if there was anybody standing on the other side of the SUV?
No, sir.
Was there anything obstructing your view as you drove by and saw the woman to prevent you from seeing on the other side of the SUV?
The woman and the vehicle itself.
You mentioned that there was a dome light on in the SUV.
Yes, sir.
Was the driver's side door open
No,
when you
sir.
drove by?
No, sir, it was closed.
Could I have Exhibit 16, please? Did you ever see this man at any point
No, sir. I've
Walking?
Never seen... Oh, sorry.
walking across the yard, going to a door, or entering the house the entire time you were there?
Objection.
Sustain.
No, sir, I've never seen
That
that.
means you don't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Could you
That's
take that down, please? And after you left, you never went back that night, did you?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Just briefly, on those issues, sir, you just testified on cross-examination before Mr. Brennan stood up again that you saw that the passenger's seat was empty. Do you remember that?
Yes.
All right. You're not changing that testimony?
No, I'm not changing that, no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you are all set, Mr. Nagel.
Thank you very much.
Your next witness, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Commonwealth calls Heather Mason.
You solemnly swear the evidence given in the court and during the case now hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. Thank you.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hi, I'm Heather Maxon, Maxon.
How old are you?
I'm 31.
Do you live in the area?
I do.
How long have you lived in the area for?
My whole life.
Do you know a person by the name of Ryan Nagel?
Yes.
And how do you know him?
I dated him a few years back.
I want to have you take us back a few years to
Sure.
January 28th, January 29th, 2022. Do you remember that evening?
Yep.
Where were you earlier that evening on January 28th, 2022?
We were at Ryan's parents' house. Just hanging out.
Whose parents?
Ryan's.
Right. Were you with anybody else besides Ryan and his parents?
Eventually, we met up with friends
Where?
at local restaurants.
Did you end up at one restaurant or bar in particular at the end of the night?
We were first at CF McCarthy's, and then we went over to the hillside.
Were you drinking?
Yes.
Do you remember about how many drinks you had?
No.
Did the alcohol affect your perception or your memory at all?
Most likely, yes.
Do you feel like you were impaired in any way?
I believe so, yes.
After you left the establishments, after they closed, did you go somewhere?
We went to pick Ryan's sister up, Julie, from a friend's house. She needed a ride.
Before you went to pick Ryan's sister up, did you have other plans before that?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yes. Before the decision was made to go pick up Ryan's sister, were there other plans that you were...
No.
Okay, that was just the plan to
Yeah.
go get her?
Yeah,
Do you
get her.
remember generally or specifically what time that was?
Late, midnight?
Okay. Do you remember the time exactly?
No.
Is there any marker in your mind that would help you remember exactly what time it was?
Not necessarily, no.
So is that a generalization or a guess?
Yes.
Okay. When you went to pick up Ryan's sister, do you know where you were going?
No.
Were you driving?
I was not.
Who was driving?
Our friend Ricky,
Where were you sitting?
in the back seat.
And what kind of vehicle was it?
It was a truck.
Are you familiar with the area?
Not necessarily, no.
Do you remember at some point taking a turn onto the road?
Yes.
That had the house where you were going to arrive?
Yes.
How do you remember that?
Just a visual bystander, and I'm aware of my surroundings, I'd say.
Did anything happen that made you remember the turn before you got onto that road?
There was another vehicle also on the road coming from the opposite direction, and we had let that other vehicle turn onto the road before us.
Describe in a little detail what happened at that intersection.
So I don't recall the name of the street that we were on before we took the left onto the street that the house was located, but the car coming from the opposite direction was taking a right onto the same street, so we had somewhat yielded to the car coming from the opposite direction to have let them take a turn onto the street before us.
Did you see if the driver of either vehicle gave any indication to the other vehicle who should go first?
I don't necessarily recall, but I'm assuming maybe
I don't want you to assume. That's okay if you don't recall.
Sure.
Who turned first onto the road, Ricky or the other car?
The other vehicle.
The other vehicle, do you know what type of vehicle it was?
It was a big, like a SUV, a bigger car.
The SUV turned before you?
Yes.
Before or when the SUV turned, did you get to see inside the vehicle?
I did see inside the vehicle,
Could
yes.
you describe for the jury what you remember seeing?
I saw a male and a female inside the car.
Where was the female?
The female was driving and the male was in the passenger seat.
Was the male in the front passenger seat?
Yes.
Were you able to recognize either the female driving or the male in the front passenger seat?
Recognize?
Yes.
I'm not sure if I understand the
Did
question.
you know who they were?
No.
Strangers?
Yeah.
When they turned and then Ricky turned after them, how far ahead of Ricky were they?
Maybe 100 feet?
Could you see them the entire time?
No.
When you drove to Fairview, how long did it take after the turn?
A couple minutes?
It took a couple minutes to get from Cedar Crest to Fairview?
Oh,
That's
maybe.
okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay. When you arrived at Fairview, where did Ricky stop?
Outside the house on the street?
Do you remember where on the street in relation to the driveway?
No.
The other vehicle, the SUV, was it in front of you or behind you when you stopped?
It was in front of us.
When it was in front of you, did you notice anything about the vehicle?
No.
Did you notice anything about its lights?
No.
Did you see whether the interior light, the dome light, was on or off?
I did as we were leaving.
Before you left,
No.
did you ever see that dome light come on?
No.
Did you notice anything about the brake lights?
No.
Did you notice anything about the vehicle's tail lights, whether they were intact or broken?
Nope.
When you arrived at that address, do you know the street address?
I do not.
Okay. When you arrived at that address, what happened next?
I believe Ryan had reached out to Julie saying, we're here, time to go. And so she had come outside and we had a short conversation and she decided that she was actually going to stay at the house. She had invited us in, but I had said that I didn't want to go inside. I just wanted to go back to the house.
From the time you first arrived at that address and until the time you left, did you ever see anybody get out of the SUV that was in front of the truck?
I did not.
Did you ever see anybody travel across the front yard to the doorway from that SUV?
Nope.
Did anybody ever walk by on the street, walk by the truck in front of you or behind your truck and walk on the driveway?
No. Well,
No.
besides Julie, sorry.
So Julie is the only person that you saw in the driveway that night?
Yes.
And then you left?
Yes,
When you left, did you drive by the SUV?
we did.
When you drove by, what were you looking at?
My surroundings.
Okay. What did you see?
I saw the female that I saw beforehand, also still in the car,
Where did you see her?
in the driver's side.
Was there, at that point, any lights on inside the car?
There was, yes.
Which
The
light?
dome lights.
Was the driver's side door open?
Not to my knowledge.
Did you see anybody else inside the SUV?
I did not.
Was there anybody else inside the SUV?
You didn't see anybody inside the car?
Besides the driver? No.
Okay, next question.
Do you know whether there was anybody else inside the SUV at that time other than the driver?
No.
Did you look in and study the interior of the SUV?
No.
How long did you look inside the SUV for when you passed?
It was just passing, so I don't know, a couple seconds.
Did you see if there was anybody or a man standing outside the door of the SUV?
I did not.
I'll allow it.
Outside the door?
No.
Did you see anybody lying on the front lawn?
No.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Before Ricky turned onto Fairview Road, you saw the SUV in front of Ricky's truck, facing it, taking a right-hand turn in front of you, correct?
Correct.
And at that point, you had an unobstructed, good look at the driver and the front passenger, correct?
Correct.
And you could see that there was a female driving and a male in the front passenger seat at that time.
At that time, yes.
Now, ultimately, Ricky's car took a left after the other SUV took a right, correct? And eventually, when you reached the house where Julie was, you saw that that SUV was in front of that house, parked now further down ahead of you, correct?
Correct.
And it took Julie a couple of minutes to come out of the house?
I'd say so, yeah.
Do you recall whether there was any conversation at that time between you, Ricky, and Ryan?
Possibly. I don't recall or remember what, but most likely, yes.
And you don't remember whether you were participating in a conversation or what was discussed?
Not necessarily, no.
You had your cell phone with you that night?
I did.
Like many of us, is your cell phone something that you tend to check when you're bored or there's a break in a conversation or you're not actively engaged in a discussion?
For sure.
And while you were waiting for Julie to come out of the house, do you recall whether you were checking out any web page or Instagram or text message or app on your cell phone?
I don't recall.
Can you testify with certainty that you were not checking your cell phone during that period of time?
Not with certainty, no.
And so you can't say for sure how long, if you did check your cell phone, you would have been looking at it while waiting for Julie, correct?
Correct.
And no one's asked you for your phone so that they can analyze what you were doing during that period of time outside 34 Fairview, correct?
Correct.
All right. Well, you testified that you didn't see anybody get out of the SUV or approach the house, correct?
Correct.
You obviously don't know what did or didn't happen before you, Ricky, and Ryan arrived there, correct?
Correct.
While you were parked near the driveway, you weren't thinking that you had to watch the SUV every second in case you were later asked to describe what was going on with that vehicle, correct?
Correct.
And that SUV was the same vehicle that you recognize as previously having a female driving and a male in the passenger seat, correct?
Correct.
And as far as you know, you didn't know either of them at that time?
No.
Fair to say that what they were doing was their business and you weren't particularly interested in what they were doing, correct?
Correct.
You were there to pick up your boyfriend's sister, correct?
Yes.
It was late and you were tired.
Very much so, yes.
You'd had a good amount to drink. Mm-hmm. You did not want to continue to drink and socialize, correct?
Correct.
Fair to say you were looking forward to ending the night at that point?
Yes.
And so you were more focused on hopefully getting Julie in the car so you could leave than anything that was going on in the SUV, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Then Julie came out, and it wasn't as simple as her just jumping in the vehicle and leaving, correct?
Correct.
There had to be a discussion,
Right.
right? And she came out to speak to the three of you for about 5 minutes or so,
I'd say.
like a back and forth about who's going where.
Yeah.
And when Ricky was pulling away, you looked over to the SUV and you saw that the interior light was lighting up the front compartment, correct?
Correct.
And it was then that you looked over and you saw a female in the driver's seat, correct?
Yes.
You did not see any person in the passenger seat, correct?
Correct.
And you certainly did not see a 6-foot-tall off-duty police officer in the SUV at any point on Fairview Road.
Correct.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything, Mr. Brennan?
When Ricky was speaking to Julie and you were in the back cabin of the truck, what direction were you facing?
I don't recall.
Were you paying attention to the conversation with Julie?
I was probably in and out of the conversation, yes.
Were you facing the direction of the house in the SUV, or were you facing the opposite direction?
I don't think I was facing the opposite.
When you were in the cabin of the car and Ricky was having a conversation with Julie, did you ever see anybody other than Julie come in or out of the house?
No.
I'll allow it.
No further questions. Thank you.
May we approach briefly?
Okay.
Your Honor. Could you please, again, introduce yourself to the jury, spell your last name for the record?
I'm Trooper Nicholas Guarino, Guarino.
You would explain what an extraction report is.
Yes, it's the information in the cell phones. We can create PDFs or portable cases from information, whatever is specified.
An extraction report, can it be general or more narrow?
Yes, it can be.
I want to introduce a few more extraction reports that we didn't get to last time.
Okay.
In this case, did you use Mr. O'Keefe's phone to create an extraction report that included all of his calls from the 28th and the 29th of January 2022?
Yes, I did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
And your document, do you recognize that document?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
It's John O'Keefe's call logs from everyone from the 29th to the 28th. Right.
I move this into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you. 65.
Did you create an extraction report that included a text message between the defendant and Jennifer McCabe?
Yes, I did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
And in your document, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, it's the text chain from the defendant to Jen McCabe.
I move this into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
66.
One moment. Thank you. With the court's permission, could Mr. Guarino read this to the jury?
Okay. One quick question.
Could you kindly read that and explain it to the jury?
With all the information on it.
Yes.
This is from the defendant to Jen McCabe, 7:26:52 a.m. on the 29th. It says, "Can you send me Kerry's number?"
Thank you. Did you further create an extract?
Sorry, Mr. Brennan, in terms of that reading of the document, you just have to check on that, please. Sorry.
No problem.
Yes.
Can you review that again?
Yes.
And do you see who that's from? And who it's to?
I'm sorry, it's from Jen McCabe to the defendant.
And what does it say?
Can you send me Kerry's number?
What time and date?
That is 7:26:52 a.m. on April 29th, 2022.
Thank you. Did you do a further extraction report from John O'Keefe's phone with text messages between him and a person named Kaylee?
Yes, I did.
May I approach?
Yes.
You recognize that?
Yes.
What is it?
It's the text chain between John O'Keefe and Kaylee.
The date?
It goes. Sorry, it's kind of faded. January 28th, 2022 to January 29th, 2022.
Thank you. I'd move this into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Exhibit 67.
Okay, Trooper Garino, we're done with extraction reports.
Okay.
Did you have an opportunity to obtain phone messages, phone calls, and text messages between the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe?
Hold it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Trooper Garino, did you have an opportunity to obtain phone calls, voice messages, and text messages from the defendant to Mr. O'Keefe's phone on the evening of January 29th, 2022?
Yes, I was.
Where did you get the phone call records from?
From John O'Keefe's phone.
Where did you get the voicemails from?
Also from John O'Keefe's phone.
Where did you get the text messages from?
From John O'Keefe's phone.
Did you have an opportunity to take those phone calls, the voice messages, and the text messages and put them in a chronological order?
Yes, I did.
Did you include all of the phone calls, all the text messages, and all of the voicemails?
Between John O'Keefe and the defendant, yes.
Did you create a PowerPoint to put them in a chronological order?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes. Show Mr. Alessi.
Sorry. Showing you a binder, sir. Could you open it up? Tell us what this is.
Yes, this is the phone calls and text messages between the defendant and John O'Keefe, as well as the voicemails. Well,
Is there a package in the front of that binder?
yes, there is.
And what is that package?
It says defendant's voicemails and on 1/29/2022. The USB thumb drive that should have those files on.
Your Honor, I move this binder as the next exhibit. It would include both the PowerPoint presentation as well as a clip of the phone calls.
No objection, Your Honor.
Should, yes. Do you need the thumb drives?
I don't.
Okay.
Mark this, please.
Exhibit 68.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With the court's permission, I would ask that Trooper Garino take us through the PowerPoint presentation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is it okay to begin? Okay.
Please.
So these are the phone calls on the 29th. So at 12:33:35 a.m., the defendant calls John. That phone call is not answered. 12:34:09 a.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered. 12:34:38 a.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered. 12:35:09 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 12:35:35, the defendant calls John. It's not answered. 12:36:09 a.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered.
Trooper Garino, let me stop you there for a second. Did you look into any internet connection between the defendant's phone and the router and the internet connection at Meadows Ave, John O'Keefe's home that night?
Yes. At 12:36:39 a.m., the defendant's phone auto connects to the Wi-Fi HATSFAN 123.
Are you familiar with the router at Mr. O'Keefe's home?
I have not done a look at it in person, but that's the known network that's listed under it. There's two, HATSFAN 123 and O'Keefe 74.
Did
Two
you
names.
learn the range that a connection must be in order to connect to his router?
Yes, so depending on the router, it's either a 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz radio band or signal band, I should say. Depending on which one it's connecting to, which band, it's either 150-foot indoor range or up to 300 feet outdoor. So again, when you pull into your home, sometimes you can still be connected to your home Wi-Fi in the driveway.
And again, can you give us the time of the connection between the defendant's phone and Mr. O'Keefe's router at Meadows Ave that night?
Yes, 12:30, 6:39 a.m.
Please continue.
At 12:30, 6:40 a.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered. At 12:37, 08 a.m., the defendant calls John, and voicemail number 1 is left with voice.
Ms. Gilman, would you kindly play the voicemail for 12:37:08?
At 12:38, 26 a.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered. 12:39, 03 a.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered. 12:39, 37 a.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered. 12:40, 43 a.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered. At 12:41, 35 a.m., the defendant calls John. Voicemail number 2 is left. Some beeping noises, appears to be a butt dial or accidental call.
Ms. Gilman, could you play the voice message at 12:41:35?
The defendant then texts John O'Keefe at 12:55, 31 a.m. on the 29th, "I'm going home." The defendant texts John O'Keefe, "See you later," at 12:55, 50 a.m. on the 29th. At 12:58, 19 a.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered. 12:58, 47 a.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered. 12:59, 24 a.m., the defendant calls John. Voicemail number 3 is left with voice.
Ms. Gilman?
John, I'm here with your kids. Nobody knows what the pervert.
At 1 a.m. and 26 seconds, the defendant calls John. It's not answered. At 1 a.m. 49 seconds, the defendant calls John. Voicemail number 4 is left. It's 1 second called, no sound.
Ms. Gilman?
That was it. The defendant texts John O'Keefe, "Your kids are cucking alone," at 1:02 a.m. on the 29th. The defendant texts John O'Keefe, "I'm back in Mansfield. The kids are home alone," 1:04:14 a.m. on the 29th. At 1:10:17 a.m., the defendant calls John. Voicemail number 5 is left with voice.
Ms. Gilman?
Yeah, it's 1 in the morning. I'm with your nephew. You pervert. You're a pervert.
At 1:10:44 a.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered. At 1:12:18 a.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered. 1:12:46 a.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered. 1:13:13 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. At 1:14:11 a.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered. 1:14:44 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 1:16:10 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 1:16:38 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. At 1:17:37 a.m., the defendant calls John. So when voicemail 6 is left with voice.
Ms. Gilman?
John, I'm going home. I cannot babysit Amy. I need to go home. You are using me right now. You're a girl. Kim's sleeping next to me. You're a loser. No.
At 1:18:38 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. At 4:38:14 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 4:38:49 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 4:39:39 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 4:40:05 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 4:42:05 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 4:42:54 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 4:45:10 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 5:04:27 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 5:21:28 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 5:21:58 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 5:23:26 a.m., the defendant calls John. Voicemail number 7 is left with voice.
Ms. Gilman?
At 5:24:27 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 5:25:28 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 5:26:14 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 5:28:16 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 5:28:43 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 5:29:21 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 5:29:46 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 5:30:15 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 5:30:52 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 5:31:21 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 5:36:29 a.m., the defendant calls John. Not answered. 6:03:02 a.m., the defendant calls John, and voicemail number 8 is left with some voice and noise and background.
Ms. Gilman, could you play that, please?
Yes, I need someone to report you. 34 beautiful Vietnam living in Capital now. Yeah. Okay, I know. Where's the blankets? I don't see blankets, Harry. Yes, I need
We have the lights on, please. I have no further questions.
In processing the scene at 34 Fairview Road in Canton, Massachusetts.
When you arrived at 34 Fairview Road, was there anybody else there?
Yes.
Who was there?
Lieutenant Tully, members of the Massachusetts State Police CERT team, the Special Emergency Response Team.
Are you part of the CERT team?
I am not.
Did you see what the CERT team was doing?
They were conducting an area search very front of the lawn and the street or road in front of 34 Fairview.
Did you have any role in that actual searching of evidence?
No, I did not.
What was your role, limited role that night?
To process any evidence that was discovered during the search.
When you say process the evidence, can you explain briefly, what does that mean?
Sure, I was had evidence bags, and if a piece of evidence or an item was found, I would place that item into the evidence bag.
And why would you do that?
To secure it.
How would you become aware if there was a piece of evidence found?
The CERT team would alert the supervisor, Lieutenant Tully, or myself that there was an item or a piece of evidence, and Lieutenant Tully would then take a photograph of it, and then I would secure the piece of evidence in a bag, evidence bag.
Do you know if those photographs were time-stamped?
I believe so.
Your role was to put the evidence in the bag and return it to the evidence room?
Correct.
Did you do that?
Yes.
If I could begin, I'd like to show you on the screen a series of exhibits. If we could start with Exhibit 74, please. Trooper, do you recognize that item?
Yes.
What is it?
That is a black Nike shoe.
Did you see that item that night?
Yes.
74A, please. 74B. Thank you. Is that the same sneaker?
Yes, sir.
After you were alerted to that sneaker, did you place that sneaker into an evidence bag?
Yes.
Did you bring that item with you today?
Yes.
Do you have gloves?
Yes, sir.
Do you want the lights on, Mr. Brennan?
Please, thank you, Your Honor. And Ms. Gilman, you can take the photo down, please. With the court's permission, I'm going to move this piece of evidence, item into evidence.
Okay.
Let me ask you a few questions before you open it. Could you stand and show that bag? There's red tape on it. What's that for?
To secure the bag closed.
If the bag is open, is it then retaped?
Yes.
Do you write on the outside of the bag?
Yes.
Why do you do that?
To memorialize the date, time when the evidence was collected.
Could you open the bag and show us what's in it?
Yes, sir.
Sorry. With the court's permission, can he show the item?
Yes.
Thank Trooper, is that the same item that you found that night?
Yes, sir.
If you could place it back in the bag. I'd ask for this to be marked as an exhibit.
All right, any objections, Dean? Any?
There is no objection.
Exhibit 77.
Sir, you mentioned there's writing on the outside of the bag.
Yes.
What type of information do you write on the bag?
Date, time, location, who is collecting it.
The time that you write in the bag, is that the specific time the item was found, or does that represent a different time?
That could represent a different time.
And why would that be?
If you're processing multiple things at once, you're bagging things at different times, then when you seal the bag, that could be the time that is annotated on the bag.
Can the item be found before the time on that bag?
Yes.
Would you ever write a time later than when the item was found?
Yes.
I'd like to move now to Exhibit 75, please. And preferably 75A, please. Do you recognize that item?
Yes.
Is that one of the items you bagged that night?
Yes.
And if we could turn to 76A, please. Do you recognize that item?
Yes.
Is that an item that you bagged that night?
Yes.
Do you have both of those items with you?
Yes, sir.
Could you produce those, please? Ms. Gilman, you could take that down, please. Thank you. 570.
Yes, sir.
With the court's permission, I'd ask the trooper to open the bag and show the jury. Sir, on those items that are stickers, did you put the stickers on them?
I did not.
Do you know where the stickers come from?
I do not.
Do you know if these items are ever sent to anybody other than your evidence locker? Are they ever removed and given to lab personnel and technicians?
Yes.
Do you know if that was done in this case?
Yes, I do.
Inside that bag, is there just two pieces, or is there another piece in that bag?
There was another piece in the bag.
When you put the taillight pieces in that bag, how many pieces did you put in the bag?
I put 2.
Do you know if the other piece in the bag is a piece that broke off, or do you know how that arrived there?
I do not.
Could you just pull out that other small piece and show the jury as well? Is that smaller piece consistent with the same color as the two bigger pieces?
Yes.
Is it consistent with the same material?
Yes.
If you could put that back in the bag, please. I'd move this into evidence, please.
Okay. Like you heard, Sal.
Okay. So, Mr. Brennan, I leave it to you and the witness how you do that part.
Yes. Sir, on the small chip piece, you don't know how it became chipped?
I do not.
I'd ask you to remove that chip. like you to safely secure it, bring with you, and bag it when you leave.
Yes, sir.
And then I'd like to introduce that exhibit.
So we're going to mark the little chip.
You
Ms.
would like to mark
Giannetti
it?
asked to
Okay.
mark that.
For identification.
Yes.
Then we're going to submit that for identification. So the small chip that I
Madam
asked you to
Clerk.
secure.
Madam Court Reporter has an envelope for that.
Thank you very much.
Exhibit 78.
Thank you.
Exhibit BB for identification.
Thank you. Trooper, we have one more bag of items to go through.
Yes.
Could I have Exhibit 73, please? Sir, if you could look at Exhibit 73 on the screen, do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what is it?
A piece of clear plastic.
Is that piece of clear plastic, when you saw it, was it at ground level?
Yes,
Did you bag that item?
I did.
When you bagged that item, was there another item along with it in the same bag?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
So I'm showing you a photo. You recognize what's in it?
Yes.
What's in it?
The piece of clear plastic.
Is that the second piece in the bag, separate from the last exhibit?
Yes.
Fair and accurate depiction of how you saw it that morning?
Yes, sir.
I'd move this into evidence as an exhibit, please.
Okay. There's no objection, Ms. Giannetti?
There's no objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 79.
With the court's permission, could we show Exhibit 79 to the jury?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, would you be able to close? Thank you. You recognize that item, sir?
Yes.
And did you bring those two items with you, the past exhibit and this exhibit?
Yes.
Could you produce those, please?
Yes.
Are these different in color than the last pieces you showed?
Yes.
With the court's permission, could the trooper show these pieces?
Yes.
Thank you, trooper. I'd move these items into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right.
Exhibit 80.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trooper Keefe.
Thank you, sir.
All right, any questions, Ms. Giannetti?
Please, Your Honor, thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Trooper Keefe, you testified that you received the cell phone of Jennifer McCabe and of Kerry Roberts.
Correct.
With regard to the cell phone of Jennifer McCabe in particular, you had her sign what is called a consent form, correct?
That's correct.
What is a consent form? Okay. Having reviewed that report, does that refresh your memory about Michael Proctor being the one to write the report on the analysis of the waterfall video?
Sir, I only obtained a copy of the surveillance video. I
Right.
did not do any analysis on the video.
That's my question. It was Michael Proctor who did the analysis, correct?
Yes.
And that, by the way, I said waterfall. Is that C.F. McCarthy's there, or is that waterfall?
This is C.F. McCarthy's.
Okay, I meant C.F. McCarthy's. He was the one to review that video, correct?
Yes, again, I only got a copy of the surveillance video.
Sure.
I did not do any
And
analysis.
with regard to the waterfall bar and grill, that was another circumstance where you and Sergeant Buchanan were the ones to retrieve the video, correct?
Yes.
But again, lead investigator Michael Proctor was the one to analyze the video and write the report on it, correct?
Yes, I would have to see that report as well, sir.
Now, another member of your unit was Trooper David DeChico, correct?
Yes.
Within your unit, did Trooper DeChico have a nickname for a first name?
Objection.
May we approach? Trooper, in terms of the troopers that were in your unit as of January 29th of 2022, which members of the unit had the least amount of time in the unit at that time?
I don't recall.
Were you one of the newer members of the unit?
As of January of 2022?
Yes.
Yes.
Then Trooper Michael Proctor had more experience than you did as of January 29th of 2022, correct?
He could have. He'd been on the job longer.
Okay, well, if he had been on the job longer, then certainly that means that he did have more experience, correct?
It depends.
You attended the autopsy of John O'Keefe on January 31st of
I did.
2022. And with regard to other members of your unit, you were the only one to attend that autopsy?
Yes.
That was done at the medical examiner's office
The medical examiner's office in Sandwich, Massachusetts.
in Sandwich, Mass. And it was Dr. Irene Scorti-Bello who performed the autopsy, correct?
Yes.
Had you met her prior to that day?
No.
Had you spoken to her prior to that day?
No.
Did you know before the autopsy was performed that your former colleague, lead investigator Michael Proctor, had discussed the case with Dr. Scorti-Bello without telling us what you knew of what was said?
Objection.
With regard to Dr. Scorti-Bello's knowledge of what the state police theory was of what happened, did you have to explain that, or was it your understanding she already knew what your theory was?
Objection.
Mrs. Staines, you can ask that differently.
What, if any, conversations did you have with Dr. Scorti-Bello about what your unit's theory was about what happened to John O'Keefe?
There was no theory.
Okay. You did not provide any theory to her, correct?
I did not provide a theory.
You learned at the autopsy from your observations that John O'Keefe had 2 black eyes and a swollen right eye, correct?
Yes.
You also learned that there was a small cut above his right eye, correct?
Yes.
And there was a small abrasion on the left side of his nose, correct?
I would have to reference the report for the exact words.
Okay. If I may have a moment. May I approach, Your Honor?
Do you want this one back?
Oh, please, thank you. So I've placed another document in front of you. Just take a look, read it silently to yourself, and look up at me when you're done. And I would direct your attention to the second page for the question I just asked you. Having reviewed that report, Trooper, is your memory refreshed as to whether you observed a small abrasion on the left side of John O'Keefe's nose?
Yes.
Now, was this the first autopsy that you had attended, or had you attended ones in the past?
I cannot recall.
It could have been the first one?
Most likely not.
When you're attending an autopsy as a member of the CPAC unit or the Norfolk Detectives Unit, you are expecting that the medical examiner is going to examine the body, correct?
Yes.
And you're there to witness that examination, correct?
Yes.
At the end of the examination, you are expecting that there will be a determination as to cause and manner of death, correct?
Not.
In this case, when the autopsy ended, you left the medical examiner's office, correct?
Yes.
When you left, your understanding was that the cause and manner of death was still undetermined, correct?
Objection.
You knew when you left that Dr. Scorti-Bello had seen the scratches or bites or injuries to John O'Keefe's arms, correct?
Objection.
You knew when you left that in your presence, Dr. Scorti-Bello had seen the injuries to John O'Keefe's arm.
Object to the line of questioning.
Sustained.
May we approach?
Okay. Jurors, feel free to stand up.